I don't want to keep the same constant vicious cycle that we are in as first responders. 129% more likely to lose our lives because of this profession. Why? I didn't leave the profession as a first responder. My body forced me out and kicked me on the way out the door. I know there's many of you in the first responder world that have had to choose yourself over being destroyed by the profession. I know there's many first responders out there sitting at the precipice of that very decision. Do I stay and hope it gets better? Or do I choose to choose myself before I get destroyed? See, this type of system and the systems that are currently running the overall complex that is the first responder world can chew you up and spit you out at a very young age. I see many 20, 30-year-olds who literally feel and look like they're elderly because they've literally just been destroyed by the system, leaving, crying in tears because they loved it. They loved what it stood for, but they couldn't stand the institutions and what it was doing to them, meaning they couldn't stand the constantly being awake, the lack of units, extra resources, the lack of equipment that functioned appropriately, the expectations that leadership had on them that just ultimately broke them. So we're going to talk about that and more in today's episode of Flight Medic Barry Podcast, because I am living this out in real time of having to separate from the job by force, not by choice. Thank you all for joining Flight Medic Barry Podcast. A lot of us think of resiliency as a mental game. We forget that it's not just mind over matter, that the body has a say in this situation. We ignore the physical cost that this job has on us. We sometimes just go, well, if I just mentally push through, just keep pushing through, keep pushing through. And that system that we have currently in place rewards the pushing through until it doesn't, until your mind cannot override your body, right? Pushing through works until it doesn't. You can keep going until your body says, well, I'm going to just make the decision for you. And it's not going to be pretty. And it takes a form in many ugly different ways. And for me, it was autoimmune disease and now cancer. See, the body keeps receipts. We just don't see them. And ultimately, it's going to cash those suckers in. And it sucks because it is the most unpredictable. You don't see it coming at times, but your body's giving you warning signs, right? The body and the mind are connected. Even if you don't necessarily see it, there's tremors, there's little echoes that are happening underneath the surface that your body's trying to tell you, hey man, I'm not okay. Warning, danger, Will Robinson. And why am I speaking on this topic? Well, I can tell you that I have had to suffer the consequences of pushing through. I am a stubborn type A personality who has just grown up to keep going. Doesn't matter what you're going through, doesn't matter what you're enduring, just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Well, that came back to bite me in the most royally apocalyptic way. So I am a flight paramedic and a 13-year pre-hospital provider, have served in high-acuity 911 situations where it was critical. And at times, I really identified my identity as part of this role that I did. And I know many of you have had to struggle with when you left forcibly because your health couldn't handle it anymore, your mental health couldn't handle it anymore. Your identity went with it. Your identity crumbled and destroyed in real time. Right? For me, I am struggling that kind of up and down oscillation of identity crisis where all I've ever known was the pre-hospital world. All I've ever known was being an EMT. When I have to make the ultimate decision to step away not by my choice, but by what is needed to continue to be healthy in order to live to fight another day, my identity was severely shot. And it was traumatized because I don't know how to be anything other than that. I feel like that is all I ever did. That is all I ever trained for. That is what I dedicated my life towards. And then now, first responders were your family, your brother and your sisters and brothers in arms. And then now you are pulled away and now you feel like you're lost and completely in chaos, for me at least, right? I can tell you that it's been a very hard process for me. And definitely it kind of leaks out into the family dynamics because they don't always know how to help you and they feel bad and they're going through it alongside you, but they don't know how to help. And I know a lot of you all know what I'm talking about, right? It leaks out. All of this stuff leaks out and has consequences that are beyond you, right? And I've had to struggle with the identity crisis as a result. But I can tell you that for me, at least, it was not one bad call that just led to all of this happening. Because sometimes we like to think, well, it wasn't like, that bad of a call. Well, it's an accumulation, right? It was years of unresolved responsibility, the lack of sleep, the not taking care of yourself, the constant fight or flight, being woken up and having all-nighters, and then going home and taking care of personal stuff because you can't just put those on pause, right? So you got to go home and you got to take care of those important things. And so it never stops, right? The clock never stops. And then you get mandatory overtime. We all know those agencies and people who out there who do the mandatory overtimes. And it's brutal because you don't really get a chance to recover. You think, all I got to do is just get to the end of this. I can get a chance to recover. And then boom, you get hit with your mandatory overtimes. And it's brutal. Ultimately, get used to dysfunction to the point where dysfunction becomes normal. We normalize dysfunction here in the first responder world at times. When we're new, we come in with this kind of glossed over eyes, or the glassy eyes. We're all like excited and it's so great, right? And then we ultimately see slowly the reality of things that school did not prepare you for what you're about to walk into. So if you're a student watching this, I can tell you that what you're going to step into is not what the book in the school prepares you. Unless you have a just jam up school, schools tell you how to be a good book smart type provider. They tell you all the book stuff, but they do not calculate all the other factors. They're not sleep depriving you. They're not making you hungry during class, right? You get breaks to get snacks. And yes, while school is sleep depriving in itself, it's another level of sleep deprivation compounded with trauma. The Oxford academic did a study that basically showed that all it takes to really be in prime time mental health distress, you just need to be on the job for no more than 6 months and have one traumatic event, traumatic call, and you more than likely are going to start showing the signs, even unknowingly, subvertly, of pre-mental health stuff. They were seeing that there is no time frame that you have to be in order to start showing the kind of unnoticed or the subtle signs of the mental health struggles that ultimately become big problems later, right? So I'm not saying this job caused this. I'm saying this job taught me to ignore the warning signs. Really underline and underscore that. I'm, again, not saying this job is solely causing this. Rather, it taught me to ignore the warning signs. I got so used to prioritizing, fixating on the patient, fixating on this problem and that problem and these situations that I just completely ignored. And then when they were bubbling up, I just pushed them down, bubbling up, push them down. Oh, I don't even know what that means. I'm just going to ignore it. Eventually the body will intervene. Ignoring the warning signs has a price. It has a cost. And I am living proof right now that I'm having to live the cost of ignoring the signs. I've had people telling me, hey man, I'm noticing things, right? Family members who aren't first responders. And what do you say? Oh, you don't understand. You don't understand what it's like to be a first responder. You just don't know what that life is like. Well, they had a lot of truth to their words. That this didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't just be like, surprise. It was like, I look back and I go, I was living a lifestyle that was just prime time for prolonged and chronic health problems. And so the hard truth is this job will take everything you give. It won't tell you when to stop. Loyalty isn't reciprocal. Your health is not replaceable. Okay. This job doesn't love you back. And that doesn't make the job evil or bad. It just makes it a system, right? It's not going to love you as much as you gave it back. It's not going to have these feelings for you of, well, I put in all this time and effort and all the energy. It's not going to, repay you that same way. So this job doesn't love you back. The systems don't have loyalty. You are replaceable. I hate to tell you, and I don't mean that to be like, oh, wow, man, you're popping my bubble. No, it is a machine. And so when a part breaks, you just put another part in it and the machine keeps going. It has to be that way in a way, right? Because if it doesn't, if it all depended on you and if it was just solely, counted on you, then we'd be in trouble because so many things can happen to us that are unrelated to the job. So we are replaceable. And that sucks because it's like you feel like, and then sometimes the institutions and the administrations even really just echo how replaceable you are. And then it makes you feel like, okay, well, I can get over the fact it's a system and I'm replaceable. But then when you feel like the administrations and leadership around you feel like, well, there's always somebody to come fill your seat and you're just a meat in a seat, then it really weighs on you, right? So listening earlier isn't weakness, right? Setting boundaries isn't quitting. Asking for help isn't failure either. And leaving isn't betrayal, right? So listening early isn't weakness because you're able to be more aware of what's going on and what is happening within you. I wasn't. I knew something was weird happening, but I was like, no, like you don't want to say nothing, right? You don't want to be the weak one. You don't want to be the one to free. Nobody wants to be the first to say something, right? Because it's tough, right? We got to be tough, right? And there's in the mission setting, right? When it's game time, it's time to go. Yes, those things get put on the sides because the patient in the mission did not care about your circumstance. The mission, the patient, the whatever needs to be accomplished does not care you came unprepared. It does not care you have mental health struggles. You did not eat. It does not care you did not drink. It does not care, and it will make you pay for it. And I'm just being blunt with you because instead of just sugarcoating it and cherrying it, it really needs to just be said that you must be able to listen to your body and listen to yourself and be willing to say enough's enough. Leaving isn't betrayal. Sometimes leaving feels like you're betraying. Sometimes I feel like asking for help is some kind of failure. Like, oh, well, I'm a loser, or I'm less than, I'm weaker than. Well, I'm going to tell you that's not true because I've seen people who never asked for help. I've seen people who could not recognize the warning signs or knew they were there and refused to acknowledge them, and they're no longer here. And that sucks because I knew them personally, and it was very and has been very tough without them. And I'm going to tell you that if this podcast episode saves one life, then I did my job, because I don't want to keep the same constant vicious cycle that we are in as first responders. 129% more likely to lose our lives because of this profession. Why? There's more mental health counselors than ever. There's more psychologists and more mental health awareness, but the numbers aren't getting better. Why? Somebody explain that to me. Something isn't changing. And I think sometimes it's actually from within. It's within ourselves. It's within the administrations and things like that. But also it needs us to say, I need help. I need somebody to help me. Without that, you can't continue to step two. So I just want to re-encourage you that leaving is not a betrayal. If you have to step away in order to preserve yourself, because you have a family to think of, you've got kids, you've got a life beyond this. I sometimes didn't even know that until I was ripped away from it by cancer. Okay. Cancer had to tell me. It's wild. Cancer had to basically sit me down and tell me you're beyond this job and you are not just this job. You have other strengths and talents and abilities to take your skills and do something with it. You have purpose beyond this job. It isn't all you have. And first responders are very similar to their cousins in the military, where when they get out, they don't know what to do. They lack purpose. They lack direction, because they've had kind of structure. They've had kind of like everything in a row, and they anticipated, kind of planned. They knew when their shift was. They knew all of this stuff. Now it's like, what do I do? So if this resonates with you, pay attention to yourself for goodness sake, for your family, for yourself. You don't need to wait to collapse before you go and do something. Talk to somebody, reevaluate what you're carrying, what you experienced, because we program it into our new people that, oh, this is normal, right? I've heard stories of the new individuals, the new students who have said that they've gone on these calls, and the medics and the crew members acted like it was no big deal. And so you're teaching them that it's no big deal. And that's to a degree, I understand, because during the mission, you got it. There cannot be, in a mission setting, that all has to be tabletop. We have to put that on the table, and we have to shelve that. We have to shelve our emotions at times, and some of our issues and our personal problems, because again, the patient didn't ask for you to have personal problems and doesn't care about them. I hate to say it. So that is why it is so paramount and important that we step aside at opportune times and go, okay, let's do an inventory here. Let's check the system check, right? You do it on your ambulance, you do it on your fire engine, you do it on your gear, you system check everything, right? You don't get on the truck and just, measly take it over from the crew before you and hope it's all good, right? I know we all don't do that. We take it off of maybe B shift does that, but I'm going to tell you right now, when you get a truck from an off-coming crew, you check it off. You make sure it was fueled. You make sure it doesn't got any damage that's going to impede your ability to respond. Wait a minute, sounds oddly like us. We need to inventory ourselves, shift daily or at least routinely to see what's not working. Because if you just ignore it, what if I ignored the problem or a lack of a medication in my drug box or a lack of equipment on my apparatus? Eventually you're going to need it and you're not going to have it, right? So you don't have to be broken to make a change, or you don't have to wait for your body to make the decision for you. Don't wait for your body to decide, please. So if this resonates with you again, please pay attention to yourself. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Remember, you, crew, patient, public. Thank you all for joining me for Flight Medic Barrier Podcast. See you on the next one.